In 2023, the global personal development market size was estimated at $43.92 billion, and by the year 2030, it is projected to reach $67.02 billion. These numbers are based on the amount generated from books, apps on mobile and websites, coaching, training, and workshops and seminars. Based on these numbers, it shows that more and more people are getting involved in personal development. YouTube is one major platform that people seek information, especially regarding self-improvement, and according to SimilarWeb, YouTube is ranked number 2 most visited website in the world and in the US, with Google being number 1. And according to YouTube, globally, an average of 1 billion hours of YouTube is watched daily on TV. And that's only on TV. I could only imagine what it's like when it comes to mobile devices, of how many hours is spent on YouTube on their phones alone. I would bet that it's way more than 1 billion hours. I don't know if you guys have noticed this yourselves, but ever since the pandemic, there has been a self-improvement revolution. People started to wake up during the pandemic, and it was mostly because basically life was put on pause during this time. A lot of people were out of work and they were staying at home. They had no other option. Everything was closed, and this gave a lot of people time to reflect. And so ever since then, more and more people have gotten into self-improvement, and there has been more books being released on self-improvement. There has been more videos, content all around, the internet around self-improvement ever since. But despite the fact that we have more resources and more opportunities than our parents, than our grandparents, we still are seeing a rise in depression, in anxiety, and in loneliness all around the world. The personal development market is growing, which means that there is more people getting involved and more interested in self-improvement in general. But why is it that at the same time that we're seeing a rise in that interest, and there's people out there who are watching the videos or reading the books or buying the courses, the mentorships, why is it that at the same time people's lives aren't getting fixed? You would think that with more books that we have available, more videos, more courses, more mentorships, you would think that at the same time people's lives should be improving, right? If you have been developing yourself, you guys know that watching the videos, listening to the podcast, or reading the books on self-improvement is the easiest part. Anybody can watch a self-improvement video or listen to a podcast on changing your habits, but actually changing your own habits is where the hard part begins. That requires you to be responsible, because now you have to take action. Everybody knows that self-improvement happens when you do the work, but we also know that learning is a part of self-improvement. Whether you are learning something new or you're doing something with what you learned, you are essentially improving. But since the work is the hardest part of self-improvement, a lot of people use that learning phase as a way to procrastinate from doing the work. So they spend much more time learning, reading the books, watching the videos, listening to the podcast, instead of actually implementing what they actually learned. So they'll read the book and then go on to the next one. They'll listen to a podcast and then go on to the next one. They'll watch a video and then click on the next one that's on the recommended. This makes them feel as if they are improving, because, as I mentioned, learning is a part of self-improvement. But if we were to look at what brings the highest return, it is doing. It is a part of human nature to seek novelty. Your brain will seek it itself. When your brain has a novel experience, it releases dopamine. And so when you are watching a video or listen to a podcast, during that time that you're watching it, you are excited because it is something new. And then towards the end of that video, you start to anticipate excitement again, because you're going to go on to the next video, and this next video is going to release dopamine again in your brain because it's something novel. But this continual seek of novelty, where you go from one video to the next, to the next, to the next, will not help you improve your life unless you are doing as much as you are learning. The truth is, many people are doing what I call passive consumption. They're reading the books, they're watching the videos, they're even buying courses and watching the videos in that course, but they don't do anything different in their day-to-day lives. They don't act on what they learn. The dangerous pit that a person who does this gets into is that they constantly seek new information. They learn and they learn, but they never actually do anything new with their lives. But they believe that they're improving because they are learning, which, like I said, is a part of self-improvement. So they'll go months, even years doing this. Meanwhile, their life is still the same. The description of their life is like this: bad habits, bad mentality, socially awkward, poor productivity, no financial improvement, and no happiness or fulfillment. And time is flying by in the process of all of this. Instead of making time their ally by doing something consistently with what they learned, they're instead making time their enemy. Watching YouTube videos and doing nothing with the information that you learn is very similar to watching a video on cooking, but not actually cooking. In the end, all you're doing is wasting time and energy. A while ago, I was listening to a podcast while I was cleaning my home, and it was about entrepreneurship and overall personal development. And one guy was talking about how a lot of people love watching or listening to podcasts on entrepreneurship and self-improvement, but never really do anything with what they learn. So they'll watch podcast after podcast, video after video, read book after book, and they never do anything new with it. And he was talking about how he's met and has hung out with a lot of multimillionaires. And he said that one thing that he has noticed between all of them is that they don't really spend much time consuming a lot of content, like watching videos or listening to a lot of podcasts. Like, yeah, they'll watch a few here and there, but they don't like spend hours of their day consuming content. Instead, they spend much of that time either building their business or mastering a certain skill that they were trying to master. They don't spend hours consuming content. Instead, they're the ones who are producing it. And then he was talking about how he asked one of the successful guys that he had met if he was afraid of giving out information for free online, where he knows that there's going to be thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who are going to watch those videos, and they're going to basically get this information for free, which can create competition for him, because basically he's giving away the secrets of how he built his business. And he said that he's not afraid of giving his information for free, even though he knows that there's going to be thousands who are going to watch it, because he also knows that at the same time, there's only going to be a small fraction of those hundreds of thousands of people who watch his videos that are actually going to do something with the information. The rest, he said that he knows, are going to continue to watch the next video, and they're not going to do anything with what they learn. That one segment of the podcast made me realize that a lot of the successful people spend much more time doing than actually consuming. Yeah, they'll still read the books, they'll still watch the videos, they'll attend seminars, they'll buy courses themselves, but they spend just as much time doing as they are learning. And that is why they improve all aspects of their lives. They use this equation: learn plus do equals change, not this equation: learn plus learn plus learn. The truth is, and this is something that I actually did in the beginning when I first started improvement, is that a lot of people are mentally masturbating. Mental masturbation is when you consume self-improvement content in like forms of books or videos or podcasts, but you never actually do anything with what you learn, but you feel like you were improving because you were learning something. And learning is better than not knowing anything. But at the same time, when you learn and you do nothing with it, you are the same as the guy who knows nothing, because your life is still the same, just like his. In regular masturbation, you are stroking your meat and busting nuts.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
But in mental masturbation, you are stroking your dopamine receptors and releasing a ton of dopamine. It is easy to read a book unless you have a reading disorder. It is easy to watch a video unless you have vision problems. But it is hard to do what the video says. It is hard to do what the book says. Even though the personal development industry is growing, which means that there's more interest in self-improvement, people are not taking action on what they're learning. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the self-improvement advice that you have consumed requires you to get out of your comfort zone. But it is much more easier to read a book or to watch a video on how to become more productive, or how to make money online, or how to be more social or charismatic. The doing part is what's hard, and that is where people get stuck and where they retreat back to learning so that they can feel like they're improving instead of actually doing, which also is gonna not only make them feel like they're improving, but they're actually gonna improve. It is vital that you stop mentally masturbating. Stop watching video after video, listening to podcast after podcast, and not really doing anything with what you learned. Instead, do something with what you learned. Have a balance in what I call the consume to produce ratio. Whether you're reading a book or you're listening to a podcast or watching a video, you're going to be tempted to immediately go on to the next thing, the next new book, the next new video, because like I said in the beginning, your brain seeks novelty. And when you read something new or you're watching a new video, you are having a novel experience. But once you're towards the end, you're going to be tempted to go on to the next thing because it's not new anymore. You already know what it is, you already know what the book is about, and you want something new. So you're going to be tempted to go on to the next thing. And this is where you can get trapped into the cycle of learning and never doing, because you're going to go on to the next book or the next video, and you're going to forget about what you just previously learned in that other book that you just read or that video that you just watched. And then you'll repeat this again, and you know what changed? Well, the books and the videos that you're watching. But your life, still the same. Instead, stop and do this. Every time you read a book, or you listen to a podcast, or you watch a video, make sure that you implement at least one thing that you learned from that book, video, or podcast. Keep the consume to produce ratio balanced, because a lot of people don't have it balanced. They are consuming more than producing. If you consume 3 videos, the ratio is not good, because the ratio is 3 to 0, which means that you consumed more than you produced. If you watch 1 video and a podcast and you take action on 3 things, that is a good ratio, because that is a 2 to 3 ratio, which means that you took more action than you did consume. If you watch 20 videos throughout the week, but you took no action at all, that is a horrible ratio, because that means that you have a 20 to 0 ratio, which means that you consume way more than you did actually produce. Wait, you didn't even produce anything. The point is to produce as much as you consume, but don't overconsume and never produce. Every time you finish consuming a piece of self-improvement content, ask yourself this: what is something that I can implement from what I just watched, listened to, or read? If your answer is nothing, and then you go on to the next new thing, the next new book, the next new video, and then you do the same over there, then I'm sorry to tell you, but you're just wasting your time. Keep yourself accountable. This is how you actually improve your life. Reading the books, or watching the videos, or listening to a podcast easily makes you feel like you're improving your life. But once you close that YouTube browser and then you go on to your real life, you're gonna realize that your life is still the same unless you do something with what you just learned. When you start taking as much action as you consume, that's when you will start to self-improve. Your habits will improve, your mindset will be better, and your results in life will be more desirable. Finally, you'll be more healthier, you'll be financially abundant, you'll be socially and romantically connected, and you'll be more happy and fulfilled. Imagine how different your life would be if you had acted on every book that you read, every video that you have watched, and every podcast that you have listened to. Bro, you would be so ahead of where you are right now. In fact, you would be ahead of almost everyone, because most people are learning just like you, but they're not doing anything. The real growth doesn't happen when you learn something. It happens when you do something with what you just learned. The process of growing is similar to a plant. First, you plant the seed, then you cultivate it, and then you harvest. Learning is essential because you're basically planting seeds in your mind, but you won't harvest anything unless you cultivate it. And you cultivate those seeds by taking action. When you learn something but you do nothing with it, it's similar to planting seeds but not watering it. They're not gonna grow because you're not actually doing anything. So far watching this video, you guys probably think that I'm saying that you should not learn and to just spend more time doing. And no, that's not what I'm saying. It is good that you're consuming content on developing yourself. All I'm saying is that you need to do just as much as you learn. Confucius once said that knowledge without practice is useless, but practice without knowledge is dangerous. You need both. So here's some additional tips that you can use so that you can get out of the cycle of learning, and start getting into the cycle of learning and doing so that you can actually produce desirable results in your life. Intentional consumption. Passive consumption happens when you read a book or listen to a podcast or watch a video with no intention behind it. At that point, you're just watching or consuming the content for pure entertainment, or in other words, for the dopamine hit that you're gonna get. When you switch to intentional consumption, you're gonna consume information based on what you want to improve in your life. So now there is intention behind it. Identify areas in your life that you want to improve and read books, watch videos, and listen to podcasts that have to do with those areas that you want to improve. Don't just read because you were told that you have to read, like I'm telling you guys to read books. Don't just read for that reason. Read with intention behind it. Learn with a goal in mind. Stop trying to be perfect. One of the common reasons why a lot of people don't implement what they learn is that they try to be perfect. They try to make sure that they perfectly execute what they learned from the book, but that's not possible. What I recommend is to just do a small thing that is related to the information that you just learned, and then build from there. It's like when writers have a hard time writing something. One of the advices that they give is to just write something even if it doesn't make sense. And once you start writing something, you're gonna start to eventually build momentum, and then you're gonna start to get the words that you truly want to get out on that paper. If you try to be perfect, then you're probably never gonna take action because you're gonna think that you're doing it wrong, or that you're not doing it effectively because it's not perfectly done. Don't stress on making it perfect. Just by acting on it imperfectly, you're gonna get ahead of most people, because most people would rather be comfortable and just consume and never produce anything. You need to consume and produce. It is important that you do both, because when you're consuming, you're giving your brain fresh new ideas so that your own brain can generate its own fresh new ideas. The self-developed person is someone who learns and does, not just learns. And I understand why a lot of us get into this trap of just learning, because the school system basically teaches us to study all day long so that we can ace the test and get 100%. But in reality, in the real world, you can never get an 100%. You're gonna make mistakes when you're learning and you're reading books and you're watching videos. And I've mentioned before the importance of mentorship. Even when you get those things, you're still gonna make mistakes. You're just gonna minimize them. You're gonna minimize the costly mistakes that you're gonna do if you don't get those mentorships or read those books. But you can never eradicate the mistakes. I've read a lot of books, and a lot of the good books say the same thing towards the end, that goes something like this: there's no point in you buying this book, reading this book, if you're not going to do anything with what you learned from this book. Consume information and act on that information, and it is impossible for your life not to change. But anyways, that's all I gotta say. I'm out.